Welcome to the ASEAN Wong podcast, where we bring you expert insights and regional perspectives on Southeast Asia and Indo-Pacific geopolitics and geoeconomics. I'm your host, Dr. Prashant Paramaswaran, and if you haven't already, do subscribe to the ASEAN Wong platform at www.aseanwong.com. Our guest today is Dr. Vanarith Chiang, who is speaking in his personal capacity, but has a variety of affiliations, including with the Angkor Social Innovation Park, as well as the Cambodia National Assembly, where he's the chairman of the advisory council. He has nearly 2 decades of experience serving in various roles, including as a consultant for the Asian Development Bank and the United Nations. We'll start our conversation talking through contemporary developments, including scam centers and Thailand-Cambodia dynamics, including the recent border tensions. Be sure to stay tuned as we talk through a range of other subjects, including Cambodia's ties with the United States and China, and what to expect in the country's foreign policy into 2026. So welcome to the podcast, Vanarith. I wanted to start with your assessment of where Cambodia's foreign policy is. We've just passed the 2-year mark of when Hun Manet transitioned to prime minister. Obviously, Hun Sen continues to play an important and influential role. Back in 2019, you wrote an article entitled, "Can Cambodia's Foreign Policy Find Its Feet?" And if you look at the events in the past 2 years, I'm just wondering, whether it's, looking at some of the tensions that Cambodia's had with its 2 larger neighbors, Thailand and Vietnam, which is nothing new. It's something that's been recurring in its history. But also some of the interesting developments in its ties with the United States, with the second Trump administration. How would you assess Hun Manet's foreign policy from a Cambodian perspective?
I think Hun Manet foreign policy show some kind of robustness and proactiveness in engaging regional and international actors. But the core principle, the core interests and objectives are there. It's more continuity of the previous kind of generation of leadership, but with more nuances and dynamism. If you look at especially Cambodia relation with major power, the United States and China, and middle power like Japan, Australia, France and India, very dynamic. And likely, I think they could conclude a strategic partnership with France next year and also with Australia. So if it become real, then Cambodia have expanded its strategic partnership to include 5. Currently, we have 3. One's with China, comprehensive strategic partnership with China, comprehensive strategic partnership with Japan, and lately with Korea, and as well as Thailand, actually. And if next year have 2 or 3 more, if India can be realized next year, so we have 6 or 7. So that is a diversification or strategic partnership that I think the new government trying to achieve in order to improve its independence as well as agency in foreign policy.
Right. That's great perspective there. And also a good reminder that even if there's a lot of focus in the headlines on the United States and China, there are a lot of other major powers that are important in Cambodia's foreign policy. You mentioned France, you mentioned Japan, you mentioned Australia, India, so on and so forth. I wanted to zoom in a little bit on Cambodia's, I'm not sure what the right term that we want to use is, but this kind of 2-front border management with its immediate neighbors, which is Thailand and Vietnam, the 2 bigger neighbors, which has been a recurring theme in Cambodia's history, nothing new. But if you zoom out a bit, it looks like it's been a pretty challenging 2 years. I mean, last year we had the sort of CLV withdrawal and the Funan Taco Canal with Vietnam. This year we've had the border row with Thailand reemerging as well in the headlines. But I'm wondering, as you look at the current perspective, which is, in the Thailand dynamics, Thaksin is now in jail. We've got a new prime minister. Lots of changes in their neighborhood here. You've written a lot in the past about thinking through Cambodia's foreign policy from a sort of broader perspective. And you've said it requires us to look at it from the calibration of various factors. So national unity is really important for Cambodia in terms of marshaling the support for foreign policy, but it's also really important for governments to invest in things like strategic communications. How do you assess Cambodia's approach so far? If we can maybe use the Thailand-Cambodia border tensions as an example, how has the government been doing, and what perhaps could it do better or do more in that perspective in terms of managing these tensions?
Yes, since the decline of the Khmer Empire in the 15th centuries, so now our 600 years, Cambodia have been sandwiched by two big neighbors. It's not easy to manage our neighbor relationship, up and downs, hate and love, sweet and sour relationship. And the very unfortunate latest development is armed conflict with our neighbor Thailand. It is much bigger than what we experienced back in 2008 and 2011. And this is a shocking and a surprise to all Cambodians that we never expected to see this a kind of massive, large-scale kind of armed confrontation. Because as a small state, I think Cambodia need to navigate through all these challenges. First of all is to build a peaceful relation with a bigger neighbor. We have no choice, but we have to try to find some ways to live peacefully with neighbor. And of course, during this time of difficulties and challenges, I think as a small state, they need to build a strong national consensus, unity with better strategic communication to tell our stories. But in reality, I think we don't have much platform to tell our Cambodian story because all the international media are based in Bangkok anyway. So during the conflict, so most of media, they report it from Bangkok, right? So it's kind of one-sided story. But this is a lesson learned that as a small state, we need to have more of effective strategic communications to tell our story, and also to have more international friends and partners that share our kind of interests and our vision. And in this regard, I feel and I have learned from this confrontation with Thailand, the armed conflict, is the role of ASEAN. So Cambodia now believes strongly in ASEAN because without ASEAN, I don't know, the armed conflict may prolong for another month or 2 months, even until now, and a lot of casualties and human suffering may incur. But I must say that ASEAN have done a pretty well in this regard, with the support, of course, from the US and China. So this is something that as a small state, we rely on diplomacy, on multilateral institutions like ASEAN, and of course international law, because Cambodia have filed a case to the ICJ in June, this 1 month before the armed conflict, with regards to the most complex 4 disputed areas, Mumbai area, Prasat Tamwan, Thom, Tamwan Toj, and Tak Rop Bay areas. But of course, Thailand have never accepted the ICJ rulings.
Right. And you mentioned a couple of things there that are important. One is the role of ASEAN, particularly for relatively smaller countries like Cambodia, and that sort of involvement in multilateralism. And of course, ASEAN has its own limitations and challenges operating as a consensus-based organization on issues like the South China Sea, Myanmar, and so on and so forth. I was interested in what you said a little bit earlier on the fact that this is something that maybe is a little bit different from what we've been seeing in terms of the border tensions that have arisen in the recent past between Thailand and Cambodia. Could you maybe elaborate about that and kind of explain the different context and why this is a bit of a contrasting and perhaps different perspective than what we've seen in recent years?
With regards to the Cambodia-Thailand relations and the role of ASEAN? Well, ASEAN have been uh, implementing this what we call the ASEAN way with the principle of non-interference. Actually, 2008, Cambodia requested ASEAN chairmanship at that time in Singapore to interfere into our, bilateral tension with Thailand. But of course, it did not bring any concrete resolutions, right? And then again, 2011, during that time, is Indonesia is the chair of ASEAN, and Indonesia under Foreign Minister Mati Netalakawa, he's very active, so he engaged more actively and managed to cool down the tension and restore peace and normalcy. And Indonesia even offered to send peacekeeping forces at that time. But of course, Thailand did not accept the offer. Cambodia willing to accept the offer. And now Malaysia as the chair of ASEAN. So I think the role of the chair very important, right? Who chairing ASEAN really important in this, providing good offices to manage the crisis or resolve the crisis between the two member states. From Cambodia perspective, this is not a violation of non-interference principle because Cambodia-Thailand border conflict, it affects the whole regional peace and stability. So it is a regional issues. And of course, it's not the intention of Cambodia to internationalize the bilateral conflict, but that is a matter of moral responsibility and a matter of necessity for ASEAN to come in to stabilize the region because that is the core mission of ASEAN to maintain peace and stability. So Cambodian understanding of this is different from Thailand, and Thailand tend to view it as a violation of non-interference principles. And Thailand, 2008, 2011, and even now, they are reluctant to get ASEAN involved in this.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. I mean, as we both know, we do see this recurring theme, right? Where smaller countries always want to use and are more comfortable with using multilateral institutions, using international law as a source of support. Larger countries, and this is not just in Southeast Asia, you could, expand this globally, tend to use those tools less, and they tend to use other tools more frequently as well. One other issue that has come up, and it is something that has been in the headlines a lot of late, is this challenge of giant scam centers that are proliferating across Southeast Asia, and really it's more of a global issue now. I mean, I think Interpol's done an assessment and said that more than a third of the world's countries now have victims related to these scam centers, even though the hubs are located in Southeast Asia. Cambodia is one of those places where you have seen institutions like the United Nations, Amnesty International, draw a little bit of attention to these scam centers operating within the country, but then also other countries in the region, like Myanmar, for example. We all know that in other countries as well, these problems and challenges are structural. Why do people fall for these scams? Some of the vested interests and political interests that underlie this. So there are a lot of challenges in addressing this, and I don't want to understate them. But I'm wondering, from your perspective, from a Cambodian perspective, how do you assess how Cambodia has been approaching this so far, and what perhaps can it do better or more of in this regard? Because this is a challenge that, as I said, is global. Everyone needs to play a role.
I think you're right. This is a global issues, and we need a global cooperation to address this. So no single country can deal with this issue alone. Cambodia have shown political will over the past 2 years or so, because it is new issue that Cambodia facing. Actually, in the beginning of some of the leaders find it difficult to differentiate between online gambling and online scamming. What is the difference? I think they understand better the differences between these two issues, because online scamming is kind of cheating online, right? And the impact is widespread, much widespread than the online gambling. So, but I think we need to understand this very complex and difficult issue, and it's kind of organized crimes now, right? Very sophisticated and they are very well, how to say, managed in a way and navigate through all these big governance system. They know how to manipulate all these big governance system across the region and different parts of the world. And this is something that I think Cambodia need to have close cooperation with neighboring countries, ASEAN, and now I think the US has been very active in supporting Cambodia in fighting against online scamming by giving information, sharing information, capacity building. Now Singapore also very active in this regard, which is good. We have to have each other to fight against online scamming. But I think complex vested interest group, rent-seeking behavior, this kind of weak, relatively weak enforcement mechanism give a room to all these organized crime to operate. And several countries in Southeast Asia you mentioned become kind of center, right? Now Philippines also having this problem. It's a growing issue now in the Philippines because some of the organized crime shifted to the Philippines after having cracking down here in Cambodia and Thailand. So Cambodia and Thailand have been working quite hard in the past 6 or 7 months or so to crack down on this. But still, I think a lot of work need to get done, and we need the support from everyone in order to fight against this.
Right. And one of the other issues which we brought about and touched upon a little bit earlier was with respect to all of the Southeast Asian countries, including Cambodia, is navigating relations between both the United States and China amid intensifying competition between the United States and China, but also a few shifts in the dynamic as well, because we've had a second Trump administration come in as well. We've had China's own actions over the past year, including the recent hosting of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summitry in Tianjin, which Prime Minister Hun Manet was present and met with President Xi Jinping. Cambodia has also been a lot in the spotlight recently with respect to U.S.-China involvement, right? We've seen both the United States and China highlight their involvement publicly in the management of the border tensions with Thailand. Cambodia is also the coordinator for U.S.-ASEAN relations, right? So those are interesting dynamics. How do you see Cambodia adjusting to these changing U.S.-China dynamics, and how do you assess its ties right now with both the United States and China?
I think